This topic is a long time coming, and I think that it's one that's very important. One of my sons tells me all the time, well, not all the time, but he tells me, "Mom, you tell too much stuff. You tell too much of your business." But the way I feel about that is, if I've gone through something that, when you're going through things, you're not the only one going through it, and some people may deal with it a different way than you do, and something that you've overcome, they may still be trapped in it, or they might have made a bad decision or a different decision. So I just feel like when I go through something in my life and I talk about it, number one, it helps me. I used to not have anybody to tell, So when you do that, it just builds, and you get just more and more depressed. But I feel like if I have a story that can help somebody else, what is the point of me keeping my mouth shut? Why would I die with all these stories? Because I've been through a lot, as we all have, but I've been through a lot of stuff in my life. And some of the stuff is some pretty serious stuff. So why would I never share that? Why would I die with all this, all these stories and knowledge, if you will, about certain situations, when I could have reached out to somebody and pulled them, or at least give them the courage to do something about it. But here's the story. So kind of trying to think where I want to start with this, because it's a pretty long and detailed story. Anything that I say, if it's negative against any of my family members or any of my friends, I don't mean it that way, because what I'm about to share is like 30 years old. This happened 32 years ago. And people change, and people who I might say something about right now, they're not like that now. A lot of things happen between then and now that really changed for the better. When I was 17 years old, well, most of my life growing up, I grew up in the country, and I didn't have any friends, because I had friends at school, but I didn't have playmates to come home with me and play outside. I didn't have any of that, because it was very segregated. There were no other races like Mexican, Chinese. It was black and white, and you didn't associate with each other. But the school that I went to only had, like, depending on what year, between 5 to 10 white kids. So the majority of my friends were black. So the white kids didn't particularly care for me, because I played with the black kids, and the way they acted made me not like them back, because I couldn't understand, we're all kids, we all gotta go to school, why can't I play with everybody? I never understood racism. I asked my mom flat out, I don't know how old I was very young, I said, why can't we go to each other's houses? Why can't we have things to do why can't black and white people do things together? And she said, that's just how it is. And I said, I know, but why? That's just how it's always been. That's just how things are. I understand that, but why? I always wanted to know why. And I never got that answer. And it wasn't until many, many years later, when I grew up, I understood why. And really there is no answer. It's just, the way people are. And I won't get any more into that, because that's not what this is about. So I was I was young, and then I was a preteen, and then I was a teen, and I just wanted to live a normal life just like anybody else. But I wanted to date. I wanted to, I liked boys, and I wanted a little boyfriend or whatever. And there were no white boys that liked me, but there were plenty of, the school was a black school. So I would have boyfriends, but they were secret. I lived a completely double life. I was a black girl at school and a white girl at home. And I would have to act different at school, and I'd act different at home. I was more myself at school, but I had to pretend at home. I had to become somebody completely different. When I was 16, I got pregnant by a black guy. And I won't get into a whole lot of detail about him and everything. He wasn't what I thought. But he was older. He was a lot older than me, and I didn't know that. He told me he was one age, but I found out later he was another age. But I got pregnant, and to get to the point, my family gave me an option. You either do this or this, or you gotta leave the family. If you're gonna keep the baby, you gotta leave. You're no longer welcome in this family. And there was no way I was not gonna keep that baby, my baby. So in the hospital, after I had given birth to this little boy, I was given the option one last time. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna keep this baby? And I did. So when I left the hospital that day, I had to move in with the father of my baby. Except he wasn't there. I had to live with his mother because he had once again. So he was in and out of jail, and he was an alcoholic, and he was on drugs. And I knew that to a point. I knew that he drank a lot, but I had no idea what I was about to get into. And he had violated his parole, so they allowed him to go to another state because I guess his social worker, maybe his lawyer, told the judge about he had a baby on the way, so they didn't want him to go to jail. So he was allowed to leave the state and go to another state because his sister lived in the other state. He had a sister there. So I lived with his mother for a month. And No, you know what? No, I think I went by myself. I took a Greyhound and I went back. Nope, nope. He did. He came back here and he got me, and me and him rode up there together. And I remember that because on the way up there, I was saying something about where are we gonna live? Do we have somewhere to live? And because over the phone through that month, he was telling me that, I got us an apartment and different things. But on the bus up there, I'm holding this little baby, and he tells me we don't have anywhere to live. There is no apartment. And I was like, what? And I think we couldn't move in with his sister because he had gotten into it with her, I think, or something. I don't even remember that. But I remember Red Cross had to help us get an apartment to at least, we stayed there for a week. And then after that apartment was over, they placed us in another, and not an apartment, a hotel room. And then after that week, I guess they did it again, where they put us in a different hotel room. And then after that week, his sister allowed us to move in with her. So for a while, that's where I lived, and he lived, but that's where I found out a lot of things about him that I didn't know. So once we moved in with her, slowly some things started changing. He had isolated me from my entire family. He knew I couldn't go home. He knew I had this baby, so I couldn't really. And I was 17 when my son was born. I was 16 when I got pregnant. I was 17 when he was born. So he knew that he had me, and I couldn't go anywhere. I didn't know anything. I was this little country girl that never been to a city before in her whole life. And I was shocked. I get to that other state, and there was like different races of people living in the same building. I was in culture shock. It was like crazy to me. I was just, I don't know. I was just like, I don't even know. So, it didn't take too long. We eventually got our own apartment. But once we did that, he had me completely isolated, even from his family, his sister. Because his sister had a roommate, his sister had a daughter, her roommate had 5 kids. So the kids, the adults too, but the kids had started to see how he treated me. There was one day, I was sitting, his sister's bedroom had a little couch in there. And I remember sitting on the edge of the couch and I was holding the baby. And he came in, he was so drunk. And he wanted to hold the baby. And I didn't want him to hold the baby. He could barely stand up. And I said, no. Now, you may think I'm exaggerating, maybe not. I was 86 pounds before I ever got pregnant. And you know what though? I'm very short. So I was 86 pounds, but I wasn't, trying to figure out how to say this. I was cute, girl. I was so cute. I was so little. So when I had my first baby, I think I reached 100 pounds. And ooh, I was so happy I had put on a little weight. I was still cute. I had a cute little baby and everything. Ooh. I was sitting on the edge of the couch and I didn't want to give him the baby. And this dude, I think he's 5'9", 5'10". He was probably, I'm bad at this. I don't know. He wasn't fat, but he was way bigger than me. He slapped me across my face so hard that my whole top of my body went over the arm of the couch. And when I came back to like sit, he took his cigarette and he put it out right here. I had black stuff all over my face. I had a hole in my forehead. I remember immediately putting my face in my hand, and he took the baby out of my arm. And I went to the bathroom, and I was about to start cleaning my face. And this is how the kids, this is like the most, this happened early on. So this let the kids know right away how he was going to be. And I remember the boys, and I remember the oldest boy, but his siblings were around him. They all came to the bathroom door, and they knocked on the door, and he handed me a towel. It was a little white towel to wipe my face. And I remember all them kids looking at what he did, and they just had this look, and they were looking at each other. And it was from that point on, they didn't care for him they didn't have much to do with him anymore. Of course I stayed with him, but it was time and time again where things like that would happen. And it got to a point where I did start calling the police, and the police would come out. I remember the first time they ever came out, I defended him. I was like, he needs help. He's on drugs. He's drinking all the time. He needed help. And I remember one of the cops saying, "Ma'am, we're not counselors." And I remember them handcuffing him and putting him in the back of the van. But for the next several years, and I got pregnant again when I was 18, and I had that baby when I was 19. So now I'm 19, I'm living with this guy. I flinched every time he walked by me because I never knew when he was going to hit my face. I would hide from him. This is when I only had one baby. I remember wrapping the baby in a blanket, dead winter. I would go to the basement, and I would put cardboard boxes, like cardboard down, so that I would have a place to lay. And I would try to sleep in the basement. I was so tired. And I never knew when he was going to do something to me. And I didn't think I was ever going to get away. And I was alone, man. I was it. And one time he hit me, And I ended up calling the police, and they asked me if I wanted to go to a women's shelter, and I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know what that really was, so I told them I didn't want to. So somehow in that conversation, my parents came up, and that I lived in another, I came from another state, and they ended up, I think I called my mom, and she told me to come home, that they would send money for me to come home. So I got the baby, and I took a Greyhound and came back home, and I remember my mother, we had gone to the store, and I needed to go in the store. I was only there, I think it was a week that I was back at my mom's house, maybe a week. She hid the baby, like she wouldn't even get out of the car. She would hide the baby's face. She didn't want people to know he was black. And my mother was so afraid that the Klan was gonna burn her house down. It was like, she was just so scared. The whole time I was there, she was so scared. And I ended up coming back, getting back on a Greyhound and going back to him, because I was so unwelcome at home, and and at home again, I'm back out in the middle of nowhere. I'm in the country. I ain't got nobody. I'm feeling unwanted. My baby for sure is unwanted. So I would rather go back to him and get, beat up a little bit sometimes than, I don't know, man. I don't know. And above all else, I cared about him. I cared about him so much that I always thought he was going to change. That's part of why I had my second baby. He missed the whole birth of my first baby. So maybe if I have another baby, he'll really love me now. He's going to love me now. And he wanted, he got boys. But I just forever felt like I was trapped, and that would be my life. But you know what? I think I'm gonna make another part to this, and I'm gonna make another part to this, and I'm gonna get more detail about what life was like with him, because there came a time where I met this lady, and she was in hiding. Her husband, she had a little girl. Her husband had threatened to shoot her, so she had gone into a shelter in Chicago, and they moved her from that shelter to Kentucky, and then to my city. They were trying to make him lose track of her, and I ended up meeting her, and me and her became friends. I had 2 little boys. She had a little girl. She introduced me to her church. So I really want to get into what life was like, and what I was thinking, and what I was feeling. And then I'm going to bring you into the part where God stepped in. And I want you to see. I want you to hear me, and I want you to watch what God does. Because in the beginning, I didn't care about God. I was out there doing my thing. But when I allow God in, I'm going to show you how this story dramatically changes. But at the same time, I want to reach anyone who's in that situation and who's dealing with that. Like I said, when I make this other video, I'm going to get more in detail of a lot of things that happened and how bad it was, because I want you to know whatever he's doing to you. And you know what? Men go through this too. Whatever she's doing to you or whatever he's doing to you, I don't care how bad it is. There's a way out. And there's several ways out. I know how dangerous it is. That was his big thing. If you leave me, I'm going to find you. I'm going to kill you. I heard it all the time. I was so scared all the time. I would go to sleep at night and I would have like knots in my stomach. I was so nervous. Every night. And some of the ways he hit me, I don't understand how I'm still alive. Because he was not playing. I'm going to bring a part 2, possibly a part 3. Because I'm going to break this down. But hold on to my words. Even if you don't even watch part 2 and 3. The bottom line is just talk to God. Just listen to me. Look. I wasn't in the midst of this and just started praying one day and God delivered me from this man. That's not how it worked for me. So that's not necessarily what I'm saying. But just know that there's a way out. And we're going to get you there. Okay? I got to go. I got to get in here. But just keep your eye out for part 2. But if you're going through this, just hold on. Just hold on. And start praying now. Even if you don't know God. Even if look, I'm going to keep it real. If you butt naked in a bed right now with a man you don't even know, but you're listening to me, just talk to God right now in the midst of the garbage. Just talk to him. He's going to hear you. He's going to hear you. Step out of what you're doing and continue to talk to him, and he's going to work for you. Watch what I tell you. I'm telling you, I guarantee it. Listen to me. So anyway, I got to go, but look out for part 2, and we're going to go from there, okay? You just hold on. Hold on. I got you. Hold on. All right, I'll see you later.